Good evening and welcome to the April meeting of the Development Review Board for the town of Richmond. We have a pretty full agenda tonight, so we're going to get started as best we can. I'd like to remind everybody either here or on Zoom that if you offer evidence or testimony, either written or oral, that may qualify you to be an interested party should you wish to appeal any decision we do or don't give. So if you have something to say, please do it. Having said that, we may have a crowded, some of the meetings may be, or hearings may be crowded and a lot of people interested. So I'd like you all to remember that there'll be some order to this. The main order is that the applicant will go first, and then we'll get to the people in the public. And I'd like, if you're on Zoom, how does it work?
So for everyone coming in on Zoom, and again, I'll periodically remind people throughout the night, please go to the chat box and please type in your name, address, and what item that you're interested in this evening. All the items are noted on the agenda. If you don't do that, I won't be able to get you guys the decision if and when when the DRB decides to render one. So
how do they wave their hand or be recognized?
So if that's the case, so one thing that we're going to do, because we're going to have everybody muted. If you go to the chat function, where is it? Go to the reactions button, and you're going to see an option there to raise hand. So if you would like to speak, what you could just do is click that, and the chair will recognize you at his discretion, and then I'll do our best to, and you'll have to unmute yourself. And again, if you are muted, we will try and remind you of that, so that way we can get it solved. Do the best that we can with that. Hello, gentlemen. Yep, just go ahead and sign in, and we'll just grab a seat wherever you need.
Great, thank you, Tyler. Okay, first hearing on the agenda is SUB 2023-03, Peaceable Kingdom LLC. They're seeking to amend an existing setback on lot 2 of their subdivision off Cochran Road and Thompson Road. The proposed changes reduce the front yard setback from 30 feet to 10 feet and the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. They are also looking to modify the building envelope for lot 2 at 15 Peaceable Street. So the applicant is Gary Bressar. Gary, would you like to tell us what you have in mind here?
Sure. Do you need to swear me in or anything?
Yes, I do. Thank you. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now you may go forward.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. I'll try to make this quick. I know you have a big hearing coming up. So this is a previously approved PUD, and when we went to lay out the house we were hoping to build there, we realized that it's was going to take away some of the view of the round church from the two adjoining houses that are slightly further away from the round church, the yellow one and the most recent one I built. So we wanted to pull the building back towards Thompson Road on the lot. And we put in the other thing, by pulling it back towards the road, we started to get too close. If we moved it too far to that big hackberry tree that is there, a really big, fine specimen of a hackberry. So we kind of split the difference. And then this week, Gina and I laid out the lines for it, and we realized that we don't really need to go back to the 10-foot setback from the road. We're really only probably going back 6 feet. So, I mean, if you approve this and you want to reduce it to, instead of 10 feet, 20 feet, that's fine. We'd still be a few feet away from that. And the other adjustment we made is towards the red shed that is on the part of the old carpenter house lot. And we went down to 5 feet there so that we could again move farther away from that big hackberry tree. So that's the reason we're doing it. I mean, the house did fit on the lot, but I know the view of the church means a lot to the people in those two houses, so we wanted to do what we could to keep as much of the view of the church for them as we could. The other thing since we were coming, we did clean up a couple as-built things in the water and sewer lines we put in that will be eventually turned over to the town. So those green lines on the bigger version of the site plan are now very accurate. Will help the town if they ever need to dig up anything once it's turned over. And the final slight change we made is we took out a little curve in the Peaceable street that was in the earlier version, and now it's delineated as straight. That curve was beyond the turn to the driveways to the units 4 and 5, but very minor changes there. But we wanted to, since we were coming, get the site plan as accurately delineated as we could. And that's all I have to say about it.
Okay.
Happy to answer
Tyler,
questions.
if we should approve this, Gary will have to file a new Mylar, is that correct?
He has to record a new plat within 180 days.
Okay,
It's very similar to what we had to do with Leandro Vasquez.
right. Any questions from the board? Yep, Patrick?
I guess, Tyler, in the staff report, you say section 552 gives us broad authority to waive setback requirements. I don't see that language.
Sure.
I see where it says we can waive who prepares the plan, but I'm not saying where we have the ability to change it.
Plain unit development.
The report says section 552.
552. Maybe one address, previous road, one space. Existing features, proposed development. One of this PUD language. So. Hang on one second, guys. I
Yeah.
apologize for that. I imagine it's a clerical error on my part.
Subdivision rights versus the zoning rights. Yeah.
I believe it's probably in the PUD language.
It's not in 552.
Isn't it 562? That's the conditional use review?
No, because it's not conditional use. Hang on a minute.
I thought it was in the purpose section of 5.12 plan unit development, where it says,
In the PUD language, so I don't know
Yeah.
why.
yeah,
Because it is in
so
there.
it's in the purpose section saying that you can modify front, side, and rear yard setback.
Sounds familiar.
Requires given lot area, lot dimension, yeah. Okay, here it goes, yeah. The modification of,
What section are you reading?
it's 512, it's the purpose section. So the modification of the dimensional requirements governing lot area, lot dimension, lot frontage, lot coverage, and dimensional limitations for structures governing front, side, and rear yard setback requirements of these zoning regulations may be permitted, subject to the conditions set forth in this section, simultaneously with approval of the subdivision plat and the Richmond subdivision regulations. So you generally have pretty broad authority with PUDs to modify those setbacks. That is the point of being able to do a plan unit development. So with, it's your, within reason, you guys, what you deem appropriate, you can modify those setbacks.
Make you comfortable, Patrick?
Yeah, it was like- sure.
And I do apologize for
No,
this number.
Right. I knew it, the language sounded familiar and I didn't. have
Any
time.
other thoughts from the board? Comments or questions of Gary?
Well, the other thing I'd mention is that, the planning commission is working on a rewrite of zoning for the residential areas of the village. And for this area, the village south residential area, they are, in the most recent draft I've seen, they have reduced it to 10-foot setback for front yard. So I'm still well beyond what that proposed language would allow.
Nothing else for me, thank you.
Okay. Nothing from the board? No. Are there any questions from the public? You would see that, right, Tyler?
Yeah, so I don't see any on here. If anybody does have any questions about this, raise your hand. It's again, just as a reminder to everybody, let's go down to reactions. And then there's a raise your hand button on there. If you don't have any questions, then don't raise your hand.
Okay, having heard no questions from anybody, any other thoughts from you, Gary?
No, thanks.
Okay, what would the board like to do? Someone want to offer a motion?
Sure, I'd motion to approve with the conditions in the staff report.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Gary, we have 45 days to issue a decision. We'll try to do it sooner than that and get you taken care of.
Thank you very much and good luck tonight.
Okay.
So, all right. Steve, Matt, you're up.
Wait, let me call it, please. Have a seat.
And the mic is right there, guys. You can sit up front with the mic.
One up.
So our next applicant is CU 2023-03 Umiak Outfitters. They in the town of Richmond are seeking conditional use approval for a seasonal removable ladder to facilitate access to the Winooski River for the general public and their clients. The ladder will help facilitate safer access and protect against riverbank erosion from people climbing up and down the bank located at 1301 Cochran Road. You will be both speaking?
Yeah, I'll do the speaking unless that needs
Okay,
it, but
let
I'm
me-
Steve
just in
Brownlee
case.
from Umiak
Uh,
Outfitters.
Do you both swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good, thank you. Why don't you tell us what you have in mind here?
Okay, so we are looking to seek that conditional use to put the steps or ladder along the banks of the Winooski River at Over Rocker Park. This is a ladder that we got a verbal permission last year to use, so it's been in service last year, and we want to make sure that we've got a proper approval from you folks to go ahead and do that again for this year. I did submit some pictures to Tyler this morning, or start of the meeting. I don't know if you got them.
Yep, they were.
They're the 8-step steps that we were put in last year. We've located them, sent you a picture of the map at what we believe is the best spot along the river for possible erosion that could happen during high water on the river. It's a very protected area where there's some big silver maples and the bank is fairly low. But most importantly, it's on the inside bend. So we're alleviating any erosion issues to that area.
Sort of eddies out there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we would put this, our season of operation, we move into Richmond in the end of May. We'd be putting the steps in by the middle of June, which is when we start offering tubing operations. We run a shuttle service for clients that want to get shuttled upriver and float back down. And we run that through the month of August, or the first weekend, Labor Day weekend in September, and that's kind of our season. We would remove the steps at that time, store it in a safe fashion, and before putting them back in another year, we come back for review and continue maintenance on the steps at all times.
And during the summer, you will be responsible for maintenance of it.
Correct. Yep. We offer the shuttle service for the tubing 5 days a week. We don't do it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but we would, be looking at that step on all the other days, make sure it's in good shape.
And then there was some question about the longevity of the materials. You're using cedar,
Yes, that's correct.
and cedar is obviously fairly durable.
Yeah. About as durable as we can find. And this is a step system that has been utilized throughout New England for river access. So it's considered one of the better systems that are out there.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. Do you guys carry liability insurance for your customers?
We do. Yeah.
And so if somebody slips and falls on the ladder and breaks his head, you're covered.
Yes, it's a liability coverage for us. We don't have medical insurance for the clients. That's their personal insurance would cover that. But yes, we have, if there is any, if somebody gets hurt and it's deemed as being a
Defect in the
defect in the ladder or steps or something like that, then yes, our coverage, we would cover that. And the town, we've put a certificate of liability insurance for the town to cover in that instance.
Sorry,
Question for you.
the town is an additional insured, or the town is an indemnity? What's the?
The town is a certificate holder at this point, according, on this document. Now, we may be, if additional insured is something that we can strengthen this for the town, I'm not opposed to doing that.
David?
Where do your people who use your shuttle service park?
At the Overrocker Park.
Okay. And what kind of numbers do you have?
Well, we offer 3 trips a day, and we usually take about 10 people, 6 to 10 people up in the vehicle every time that we do those tours. It's about a 2-hour float from the Bombardier Meadows down to the park.
David?
Yes,
Tyler has.
yes, Tyler.
And this is more for other David, just as also a clarification, guys, the town and Umiak are still going through the process of working out the legal agreement. This isn't, if you approve it tonight, it's not going in tomorrow. There's an ongoing conversation.
All we do is give them the right. to put
Yeah,
in
the right to put it in there, and then the town, as it is on town land, has the right at any time to say, no, we don't want it in here. And it's out. So it's just
What's the approval process for using the park for these types of purposes? That's through the select board?
yeah, so the select board would have to kind of sign, I believe that's how Josh is handling it. I believe this is going to be an agreement that the select board works out. It wasn't something that he was going to just do
So that
enter into unilaterally.
to be clear and to perhaps state the obvious, the only application before us is to put a ladder on the riverbank.
That's it.
We're not granting anything beyond that.
Nope,
And the zoning permit you referred to that they need to come back in for later.
that's
It's
all
for
gonna
that
be
structure.
contingent, and that's all gonna be contingent on. They would have to, even before they could apply for the permit, would have to get permission from the landowner, i.e. the town, to be able to install the ladder.
Yeah, and that permit will just be something processed by the zoning administrator, and it's
processed
just for
by
that
me.
structure.
Yeah.
It's not for. You know.
No, it's for the,
commercial
literally
activity.
putting the ladder in the river. That's all it is.
Not the use itself.
David, you say something?
Yeah, but it was unnecessary. I apologize.
Any other questions from any other members of the board?
I'm just curious about whether the town has talked to you about making them an additional insured on your policy rather than just a certificate holder. Ever been brought up?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my records, but again, I'm happy to,
Yeah, well,
readdress that.
I don't, a certificate holder really doesn't get the same protection as an insured.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we approve a permanent arrangement like this, whether or not we should have, the town should have the same protection as you would have if there was a failure of some of the equipment that you're installing.
And I see no problem changing this to an additional
It
insurance.
shouldn't cost them anything. to do
Right.
that.
Yeah, I see no problem with that.
Any other questions from any member of the board? Nope. Any questions from the general public?
Just as a reminder, if you guys would like to be recognized, please go down to the reactions button. Click that, and then there's a raise your hand option, and I will do my best to respond to you. It doesn't appear that I have anybody here. Everybody seems to be on one screen. So I think I don't see
Okay.
anything, David.
I would entertain a motion.
That's David, other David.
I would move to approve without the additional conditions. I think they all make sense at some level, but they seem beyond the scope of what's actually being applied for. I think that's, appropriate things for the select board to consider as they move forward with any conversation, but if we're just looking at a ladder, I don't, and I trust that the material is adequate and it will be removed annually, so I don't propose any additional conditions.
Guys, I second that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. David, okay. Great, we have 45 days to issue a decision. We will try our best to be much faster than that, and good luck with the select board.
Very much. Man.
Thank you. Good evening.
And again, I thought I saw a few other people join us. If you could, please go down to the chat option and please put in your name, address and email in there. If you don't do that, I can't guarantee I'll be able to mail you a copy of the decision. So if you would like a copy of that, please go ahead and do that. And again, same rules as tonight. If the chair chooses to recognize members of the public, please first go down to reactions, raise your hand, and you'll be called on at the chair's discretion.
Okay. Next application is PRESUB pre-sub 2023-04 Hillview Heights LLC. Hillview Heights LLC is seeking preliminary subdivision approval for a 7-lot subdivision at 2427 Hillview Road. It would create 6 new residential lots and 1 existing residential lot. The existing residential lot is currently used for agricultural purposes and will continue to be used as such.
Hang on one second, David. They're just coming in.
I think there's a group that was waiting, so we might want to
Is there
restart.
a bus out there?
Yep.
So yeah, whoever's gonna present, just have a seat right up there, guys. This is Mike. There's a mic there too, Bob. If you guys do want, you can always cheat yourself up.
Okay, let me reintroduce you folks or introduce the application. It's pre-sub 2023-04 Hillview Heights LLC. It's an application seeking subdivision approval for a 7-lot subdivision with 6 new residential lots and an existing lot. Before I swear you in, a few ground rules. There's a lot of people interested in this application, and I anticipate that there may be a lot of comments. I would urge anybody commenting to not be repetitive. So if someone has already made that comment, we don't need to hear it again. We've heard it. And I will quite possibly cut you off if we're hearing the same thing over and over again. Second, I'd like to see some decorum. So if you want to speak and you're in the public here, raise your hand and I'll recognize you. If not, and you're on the Zoom, Tyler has instructed you how to raise your hand and we'll try to call on you. So having said that, who's going to give evidence? Just the two of you?
Sorry, yeah.
Let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us what you want?
So my name is Peter Garso, from Cross Consulting Engineers, and with me is Nick Bowden. We're representing the Abondas, the applicants. And when the board so desire, Nick will go through and just give a very brief overview of the plans. I'm sure you guys have all looked at them and studied them. And then from there, we'll open up to your questions and proceed from there.
Okay. Go
Go
for it.
ahead.
All right. So this is a 7-lot subdivision. We're proposing 6 new lots, 1 remaining lot. That would be lot 7. The project is on HillView Road, on the right side as you're traveling north. The lot uses we're proposing are single-family residential, with exception to lot 7, which is also residential and agricultural. Currently, the entire parcel is being used for agricultural uses, with previous residential uses on the parcel. The lots are accessed both by a shared drive and directly off of HillView Road. So lots 1 through 3 are accessed directly from HillView Road. Lots 1 and 2 are new curb cuts that are being proposed. Lot 3 is an existing curb cut and driveway that's on site. That curb cut is proposed to be reused. Lots 4 through 7 will all be accessed off of a shared road. The shared road extends on lot 7 entirely. And there will be a right of way for lots 4, 5, and 6 to install underground utilities and to access their lots across the road across lot 7. All drives are designed to meet town regs. These slopes do not exceed 12%, which is the town maximum. The drive on lot 2 being the steepest, and all other lots well under 10%. The road is also designed to town standards. There's a hammerhead turnaround at the end of the road shortly before you get to the house location on lot 7 and the drive for lot 6 turnoff. There are some existing utilities on site that are overhead, mainly on lot 3. There are 2 utility poles extending along the drive. Those overhead utilities are proposed to remain, and all new utilities will be underground for all 7 lots and for services going to all 7 house sites.
What lot was that on?
What's
Lot
that?
3?
Lot 3 has overhead utilities existing, yes. We do have 3 state permits already approved, the first being wetlands. I'll quickly explain. The wetland impact is a temporary impact on lot 3 for stormwater conveyance, as well as impacts on an existing field drive to widen the shared road to the town standards. The wastewater permit is for 7 individual wastewater treatment systems, 1 for each lot. All wastewater treatment systems are on their respective lots with exception to lot 1, which has an easement across lot 2 for their sewer treatment system.
So let me just stop you here. Whenever you come back, we'll need to see in advance the easement that you'll create.
likewise, the wells, each individual lot has a proposed well for water supply. And then the third state permit is the stormwater permit. Across the site, there are 4 individual stormwater treatment systems, one on lot 1, another on lot 5, and 2 on lot 7. Those systems have been permitted for the 10-year storm at the state level, but have been designed to accommodate the 100-year storm, which modeling was provided to the board. That rounds out the 3 state permits. Are there any site elements I missed, Pete?
No.
So I think with that, we'd like to move to questions that I'm sure you will have.
Did you say that there was septic on each lot? There's no shared septic?
No shared septic. No.
A lot of comments that we've gotten were the 2 driveways for 1 and 2. And the thought that maybe the curb cut could be shared. Is that something that the applicant would entertain?
We proposed it as 2. If it's a condition that the board would like to see, we'd look at that.
And what are your thoughts for lot 7?
Lot 7 is going to continue to be used for agricultural uses and as a residence.
There is a residence on lot 7?
They're proposed, yeah.
And is that the one with the detached, also a detached
Correct.
apartment?
Detached, yeah, and garage, yeah.
I have some questions about stormwater. At the risk of being less educated about this than my counterpart here. I read through the study and the permit and stuff, but I know having seen it firsthand, there's some concerns about erosion to the south. And just interested in hearing in what ways, so everybody can kind of hear you speak about it. What's the plan to mitigate that becoming more of an issue than it already is?
Yes, so the 3 stormwater treatment systems on the 1 on lot 5 and the 2 on lot 7, I'm assuming that's where your concern is. They discharge south towards the existing stream. So those systems are designed to not only treat but slow down runoff. So the peak discharge out of those systems is less than the peak discharge prior to any development. So the systems are slowing down peak discharge rates to the south.
I noticed there was either a retention pond or is that right?
Yes,
Near the road, and that's more for coming off the lots 3 and 4, or is that?
the system at the intersection of the proposed road and HillView.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's gravel wetland 1. So that subcatchment treats water from runoff from the shared or the proposed shared road, lot 5, 4, and 3.
Okay.
What will the surface of your proposed road be?
Gravel.
And you have, you will submit somewhere along the way, I presume, a detailed subdivision requirements for the town, for the subdivision, that is covenants.
Covenants have been provided, yeah, covenants haven't been provided. The Articles of Association have been provided. Covenants will likely be written and drafted for the HOA, yeah.
Okay. And we'll get a look at those.
Well, we want to get a look at
We
those
wanna get a
in
look at
advance. Not 24
before
hours
we get the
before.
final, yes.
Sorry.
No.
There's also been some concerns about the existing drive that goes through the wetlands. It looks like you guys have addressed that with a new road buildup and is that, I know you mentioned in your introduction that it's more of a temporary during construction. It'll look more affected than continuing in perpetuity, but I would imagine that road is designed to, or the driveway is designed to deal with the wetlands going forward beyond construction.
David, do you have any questions?
No, not right now, no.
Patrick?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, are all lots planned to be made available for sale? Or does the owner plan to retain any of them?
I don't know the answer to that.
The current plans, I have 4 children that are interested in building a house. Balance of them will be sold.
We'll get to the public later.
I think he needs to be sworn in.
You swear or affirm to. Well, he's answering a question. I don't think he's offering evidence, but I'll swear you in anyways. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go for it. You already answered it. Roger?
Tyler, what's the minimum acreage for a lot up there?
Our most restrictive acreage requirement is in the ag res, and it's only 1 acre.
It's just 1 acre.
Just 1 acre. Yeah, we don't have any 5 acre zoning or anything like that, so. Each of those lots are, well, I think in most cases are double, if not triple the.
No,
size
I
of the
was
minimum
curious.
requirement.
For lot 7. I guess this is more of a question for Tyler or somebody on the board. I know in our subdivision regs, it requires. Some sort of description of the use of undeveloped land. That's a little ambiguous here because there's also a residence on that lot. So I don't know if that changes that requirement versus in the past, it's been like lot 7 has nothing on it and it's. Do we want to see?
So there's been a ongoing conversation between myself, the planning director, and town attorney as to the language. I think it is 610 in the subdivision regulations. And the language in it is pretty squishy because it says for any remaining lands, a master development plan, shall be provided, but it does say conceptual in nature.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's any hard thing that we're able to necessarily hold them to. And there aren't really any remaining lands in the subdivision because each lot has development on it. So that would really only kick in. Let's say if lot 7 was totally blank, right? There was no farm, there was nothing. It was just woods or a field or whatever it was. They could, that would kind of technically trigger that master development plan, but having conversations through the attorney, our interpretation of the regulations, my interpretation of the regulations is that even if the applicant doesn't have a plan, that does actually satisfy the requirement of a plan. No plan is in fact a plan. So they not under any obligation to show them anything. And even if they did show something, it says conceptual on there. So there's not a hard thing that we could hold them to if they choose to, they offer something, they come back 10 years from now or however long, we propose something totally different.
I think in the past, we've looked to, at least on the plat, if not the site plan, have it be a little bit more. I don't know, how would you describe it? Like just defined, even if it's not specific, if it's just. Remaining lot 7 for ag use, or something like that, so that it's clear. I don't know, we've asked for that.
I think in this case,
Those lots have been vacant though.
it's not remaining, it's used. So remaining is like
I
you
guess
have
that's-
land that doesn't
Doesn't
have
have
anything on it.
Right, that's sort of why I asked the question with this one, because it's a little weird, because lot 7 has a residence, so really it's just part of that.
It's part of the
Parcel.
subdivision. They've shown the
Yeah.
development on that parcel. And again, there is existing ag uses that are on there. And again, I don't think this envisions accounting for every single blade of grass that's up there either. I think it's, broader strokes is like, what do you guys plan to do? They've shown there is development on all of those lots that are up there to varying degrees.
As I recall, when we wrestled with this problem before, we've concluded that there is just no way that we can impose a restriction on remaining land because the subdivision rules don't give us the ability to do that. But any further subdivision of the remaining land would have to come before us anyway.
That's
And
correct.
so our control would be at the next step, rather than at this step, which we couldn't enforce anyway. I think that's kind of what we concluded in the past, just to state our general understanding.
That would be my understanding of the language as well.
Does this application have a master plan?
Yes, it
Or-
does. Yeah,
or
so the plot,
For any future use? Is it-
what they presented is the master plan for that property. So again, if they wanted to propose a new subdivision or anything like that, that would trigger its own.
I
It's all master plan.
understand that, but, you know, I don't read that the master plan language to say lot needs to be wholly undeveloped in order to trigger that requirement. So, you know, for any portion of the parcel or lot not proposed, well, lot 7 is 60-something acres. There's a lot of that lot that is not proposed for development.
True, but you could make that argument for any of the other lots, which are much smaller, but which still theoretically could be subdivided because they have over the number of acres.
I think some exercise of judgment is warranted there, you know, if it were 1,000 acres and they had one house on the corner, probably would say.
Well, let me look at the definition of land development, because that's where it triggers it right there. Is what the application, what the applicants are kind of compelled to do. So land development.
Read what section you're in.
Hang on one second, I gotta get to the right one. Because there's land development sections in a couple of the different ones. Hang on one second.
David, maybe while Tyler's looking at it, I think we talked maybe in the past for some of these larger applications, do we want to break down either the portions of the application or the specific criteria and sort of focus on
I think that.
testimony? And I know we did get some comments on this point, and that one might be a good place to start. Because if we go through a lot of stuff and then find out there's anything missing in the application, we'd have to go back through.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so this is the definition of land development is on page 99, it's section 7 of the subdivision. I'll read it
Right.
as best I can. The division of a parcel into 2 or more parcels, the construction, reconstruction, conversion, structural alteration, relocation, enlargement of any building or other structure, or of any mining, excavation, or landfill, any changes in the use of a building or other structures or land or extensions of use of land. Land development shall not include maintenance, interior remodeling projects. This exemption does not apply to a structural alteration which results in exterior addition or enlargement. Land development shall not include any stairway, landings, or ramps up to 50 feet squared in size, providing external access to a building which is built in the agricultural residential zoning district, provided that the entryway must be in compliance with all other elements of the zoning regulations. For purposes of these zoning regulations, the definition of land development shall also include administratively approved subdivisions and boundary lot line adjustments as regulated herein, which are not subject to subdivision review under the Town of Richmond subdivision regulations. So if we go and take that definition and we go to section 610.1, the layout of all lots and their setbacks requirement shall conform to the requirements of the zoning regulations and these subdivision regulations to achieve the desired settlement pattern for the zoning district area and neighborhood in which the subdivision is located, included associated overlay districts. All the subdivision is located, all lots must have the required frontage. If the subdivision meets the requirements and is approved as a planned unit development or as a residential plan unit development, the DRB may waive or modify specific requirements of the zoning regulations as provided in the PUD or residential PUD section of the zoning regulations. For any portion of the parcel or lot not proposed for land development in the subdivision, a master development plan is required. So because there is land development as broadly defined on all of those lots, the applicants, as I read 610.1, aren't obligated to provide any further additional information other than what's been provided on there, because there is development on there. Because if that is the case, then that standard should probably apply to all the other lots which have excess land, which could also be used for
I understand.
additional purposes.
If it was a 100-acre lot with a doghouse, that would have land development.
Land, you put a shed on it, that counts as land development. You put a shovel in the ground, it's land development.
But in the great scheme of things, it really doesn't matter.
No, because they'd have to come back for a
Because they have to come
subdivision
back to
anyway.
us Anyway, so
That
we're,
that just renders that whole section of the zoning regs meaningless then.
Essentially, having talked with attorneys and other things, it is at best poorly worded. So it's something that we have our eyes on to revise whenever we get around to being able to revise the subdivision regulations, because it really isn't enforceable. Because even if they did provide you something, they could show a drawing that says, here's a shed. There's the land development that we intend to do on this property, and we have no way of knowing whether that's the case or not. And even if it's not, it's intended to be conceptual in nature. There's no thing to grab. a
I
hold
guess
of.
that, right, but I think there's no reason to think that that was not known when the zoning regs were developed. It is conceptual and that's intentional. It's to, in order to see what else might be coming. Sorry, Roger, you have something?
I'm just, I don't, it really, the end result is the same, regardless of how you
Right,
define it.
I don't disagree, but I don't think it seems inappropriate to just say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, so we're not going to apply it.
Well, no, I don't think I don't think that. I think that as a practical matter, any further development of that lot would have to come before us. And so if we're asking for definition or prediction, or if we're asking for the applicants to tell us in no uncertain terms what the further use of that lot is to be, we couldn't hold them to it, number one, because there's nothing in the regulation that requires us, that allows us to do that. And secondly, any further development, we would have to pass on anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but we're not asking that they show what's going to happen there in no uncertain terms. I think it asks for a conceptual rendering of what might happen. That's all, and that's all we potentially would be asking for.
And I think the applicant is saying it's gonna be a flower farm.
Right.
And that's where it was. If there was nothing on there, that argument would make sense. But then we kind of come back, at least how I would interpret that, right? If you're in my interpretation of that is if they don't actually have a plan, right? So yeah, we may develop in the future, but we have no idea of what anything
Does
is.
the plan show
There's
that?
no thing to show because they don't have a plan.
That master plan shows a flower farm in the future.
I mean, it is a flower farm right now. That's what's there right now. That's what's on the remaining 66 acres is that flower farm.
Whatever you think makes sense, David, but perhaps taking. I mean, obviously we can open questions to anything, but we could jump all over the place between stormwater and master plans and site distances, but
Well, that's
So
how
you
we're
think-
gonna go for a little while, but
Okay.
we can refine it down if we need to.
Okay.
Depending on how complicated and far afield we get. Anything else from the board?
Not yet.
Yes. The traffic study. There were some comments also, and I don't disagree with this opinion that there's an argument to be made that when the traffic study was done, it was not done during a time where as many people were driving. Midst of COVID. And I don't know, I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on how much that may have affected the outcome of the traffic study, if you feel like that's not a factor. I don't know, seeing the number of cars, at those peak hours, maybe that's very different now, 2 years later or a year and a half later from when the study was done.
So the peak hours, based on the subdivision, peak hour trips are based on national studies and averages, based on the type of development and the use. So the peak hour trips from the development, which the town has a maximum of 10, would actually decrease, and we're already below that now that we're proposing fewer lots.
So was there an actual traffic study of traffic on the road,
That's
or
what
is
I
this
was
all
referring to.
theoretical?
Yeah, what I was referring to was the study that was done,
Mhm.
you know, in fall of 21. I
Yeah,
think
so
it
there was a traffic study done on the road. Our trip counts were a percentage of that total traffic count on the road. So percentage wise, the total trip counts may increase now, but our load on the road would be a smaller percentage. If that were the
I
case.
see.
Do you have a number as to what that percent increase might be?
We don't, we can, if you would like, we can update
Can you
that.
generate that
Yeah.
number? So that we would have some idea. I mean, you're talking about 10% or 5%.
We can have the study updated.
Any other thoughts and comments, questions from the board?
Yeah, on the staff report 11, there's findings from the road foreman regarding site distance. Did that get addressed?
I noticed that too. Did you have a look at that?
I did. So there was two, Pete, Gosselin went out and our road foreman and had him go out and have some conversations with the sight lines. I just didn't get a chance. He kind of got them both to me a little bit later than I would have liked. What I can do is probably just share them online here now. Just give me a moment, please. So this is his email response there. So I can read it out loud for you as well. I went to HillView to look at the sight lines and drainage. Of course, there was not officially submitted as the access permit for each lot. What I found is lot 4, which has already been approved, has site distances from the access southeast to 420 feet and northwest to 760. As you may recall, I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, they do have a approved zoning permit currently to do work on that access to serve a single family lot, which has been previously approved by the select board. So that is the lot 1 that he's referring to.
That's
Lot 3 has site distances from the access southeast 760 feet and northwest 340. These curb cuts have adequate site distance and the drainage is already established. Lots 1 and 2 do not have adequate site distances. Lot 2 has a site distance from the access southeast of 190 feet, northwest of more than 500 feet. Lot 1 has a site distance southeast of 236 feet, northwest of more than 500 feet. B71 specifies a minimum of stopping site of 250 feet and a minimum intersection site distance of 390 feet. It may be possible to get this site street on the inside corner. The B71 also states that advanced warning signs are to be placed in the sight line if the sight lines are below the minimum. Both accesses for lot 1 and 2 drain to the low spot on lot 1 into a detention pond. So that's his comments on that. He did also provide additional comments. I don't want to jump ahead too far as well as to there was some comment as to whether or not HillView Road is, can take the additional traffic. It was in one of the letters that were sent to us, I believe from Mark. I do have comments from him as well as to whether or not HillView is also that's if you guys would like to see them, I have it. If you don't,
That's
it's your
just-
decision.
That's just someone else giving their comments, not
That would
saying
be
that.
Pete
they're-
Gosselin. He went out in his opinion.
No, I understand what Pete's is, but Mark's is just another neighbor.
True.
Okay.
But he does say his comment, he has a memo in response to the comments from.
I saw that. Okay.
Curious from the applicant.
So that still
Yeah.
gets you back to lot 1 and 2. How do you propose to deal with the fact that your site distances are not within the requirements?
So we can look at that, look at the tree clearing at the road. There's quite a bit of trees that right on HillView Road. So that can be trimmed back and also we can look at that advanced warning sign.
And would that situation be relieved somewhat if the It's between 1 and 2 that you're talking about, sharing a curb cut. I mean,
Well,
you're
it
not
depends,
talking
it
about
depends
that,
where
but-
we place it, obviously.
Okay.
But we can do our own site distance measuring based on the standards.
Okay.
I don't know if Pete did it, according to the.
So what
height
he
and
did is,
distance
and I
and
knew
stuff.
it was a little bit, because I wanted to have something for you guys, because I knew it kind of had come up. So I just had him, I know you guys, I think next day went out and staked it so he could go out and
Right,
took the plans, kind of went out and saw what you guys had. I gave him a plan set, so he knew what you guys were proposing. He's somewhat familiar with the area anyways. So he went out just to kind of give his professional opinion as to whether or not those would be in compliance with the town regulation.
sure. So what we can do is we can provide the town, we'll go out
And
and,
I can give you that memo.
yeah, we can go out and survey it according to the standards of how you're supposed to measure the site distance. You get a certain height off the ground, certain path as far as how far back you are from HillView Road. So we can go out to get that information, provide it to the town. And at that same time, we could look at the trees and where we can clear and see if we can meet that distance or where we can get to, and then any mitigating factors that we need to provide.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Patrick?
Yeah, you got, no address it. Sounds good.
Again, from the board, any other thoughts, questions? David, anything? You muted.
No questions. Actually, one question. Do we have any idea what the schedule of construction for the buildings is going to be? I couldn't tell if that was asked before.
Oh, we don't have a schedule. It's gonna rely on lot sales.
Okay.
So no phasing at all if you sold all 5 or all 6 and they wanted to start at the same time, that's basically your plan.
Yeah, it wouldn't be reasonable to phase the lots. We don't know which ones would be potentially sold first or last.
Or at all.
Well, couldn't we have a plan to the benefit of the neighbors such that if the lots were sold at the same time, that there would be some phasing to kick in, right? It doesn't have to be set now. It could be some sort of contingent phasing to safeguard against nuisance and the like.
Is that a question for the applicant?
Yeah, or for the other board members, this is something that we've seen before where, in the event that all 5 lots are sold and construction commences at the same time, right? Is there a phasing that can be implemented?
That'd be something for the board to discuss. And if we feel that phasing is necessary, we could present that to the applicant.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it after sort of some springing protection.
David, I did note one thing, and I think there's 2 distinctions that we do need to make. There's the phasing for the actual construction site work for the lots. And then I think what David's talking is the actual phasing for the sale of those lots for people to build the homes on them. And I think we can do the phasing for that, for the actual site work, like the utilities, the roads, the septic, stormwater infrastructure. However, if those lots are sold individually, those would be individual people coming to me for zoning permits for the home. They wouldn't be coming to the DRB to get approval to do that work. So you could, and I did make that as a recommendation, as a condition in the application, is that we develop, for erosion control, a plan for a phasing for how the site work is going to kind of go on with those lots. So they just don't do everything at once. It's like, okay, we're going to start, let's say, for lack of a better argument, lot 1, right? Finish the site work for lot 1.
So
Come up and approve it, make sure that, yeah, it's closed, and then they move on to the next one to kind of keep it from all being done in one shot.
So I'm not sure that's something for the board to do. I think it's more a question of if we want that, we want the applicant then to do that and present to us a plan for that. I mean, there was a time when we had to phase lots when the schools were crowded, but the schools aren't crowded anymore. And actually the schools made recommendations about how many houses they could handle, but that's gone by. The schools aren't overcrowded at the moment. But I think if the board wants a phasing plan of that such, I think I would ask the applicant to present that to us. But that's something we can discuss. Anything else on the board before we open it up to the public?
No, thank you.
Okay. We'll entertain questions from the public. Again, raise your hand, and if you're online, go to whatever button it is and
Yep, so just another reminder, just go down to the reactions button, click that, there's a raise your hand icon. For whatever reason, if that doesn't work, just unmute your camera, wave like crazy, and I'll do my best to recognize you.
okay. So I see a hand up in the back.
It's not works, yeah.
When you ask a question, please tell us your name and let's hear from you. No, do we need them at the
They're
microphone?
mic'd up. I mean, I guess if you would like to, I mean, they're the ones providing testimony. I guess if you'd like them to come up a little bit closer, I mean, the room is mic'd up.
Okay, can,
Or if you want, you could have them just kind of step back, but again, it is their application. I can try and, if you want, I do have a mic here.
is someone at Mount Mansfield? Can you hear people in the audience?
Can you hear me okay?
The front mic is always the best one, and but there's a mic over by that counter and the ceiling that's pretty good. But the mic that's on the other side is not so good, or maybe not even existent.
Bradley, why don't you switch, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just coming over here, or if you guys want to come up here, or if you guys want to sit back there, however.
Whatever you guys want.
Stay there.
Stay here.
That should be fine.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Everybody hear me on the Zoom? Okay, so my name is Bradley Holt, here with my husband, Jason Pelletier. We live on Hillard Road, and first of all, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to share our comments on the proposed HillView Heights subdivision. So my comments are focused on really five major areas. One is I want to give the subdivider an opportunity to hear our specific concerns and suggestions, and to make any revisions to their plans based on the feedback from us and other members of the public tonight. Please note that we've raised these concerns at each step of the process over the past 2 years, including at the sketch plan review and through public comments on state permits. This is not the first opportunity that the developer has had to address our concerns about their proposed project. Two, I'd like to alert the board to an apparent pattern of piecemeal development on the part of the subdivider, and to ask you to take steps to ensure that past activities, the plans currently in front of you, and any future plans are taken into consideration during this preliminary subdivision hearing, to ensure that this development receives a comprehensive review by the board. Three, I'd like to flag that the application before you is incomplete and contains many discrepancies. I'll share a few examples here tonight, but in my written comments, you'll see many more details on these issues. And four, the application before you falls short of meeting the necessary regulatory provisions for this board to approve the subdivider's plans as currently presented. Again, I'll share a few examples tonight, but my written comments contain many more details on these issues. Finally, I'd like to speak to how the proposed density and siting are not appropriate for the character of our neighborhood. So you should have a letter from Jason and myself with additional written comments.
We've got that in our,
And they should also have a letter from AJ LaRosa, who's an attorney
we've
representing.
also received that.
Also, okay.
Yeah.
I did notice that wasn't, that was posted.
Yeah, so I did my best to try and get things up there in a timely manner. When I start getting stuff like a day or two before the application, it's pretty difficult for me to actually be able to get everything online. You know,
Okay.
I do I do have other duties outside of staffing the DRB, so.
All of the board has seen it though.
Anything that I get, I forwarded. If nothing else, the board gets emailed on
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
as best I can.
So one item, I again, I don't want to speak to, too many of the items that are in that particular letter, but one item that I want to speak to from our attorney's letter is the setback requirements for stormwater systems. At least one of the stormwater detention ponds does not meet the setback standards in the town of Richmond zoning regulations, and has to be relocated. So, I asked that the board not interpret our town's regulations to say something different than what's clearly written, that is a clear requirement in our zoning regulations. So the housing density of this proposed subdivision is much greater than the surrounding housing density and doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. We hope the developer uses the Richmond town plan in guiding revisions to their proposed plan. The current proposal is not compatible with, quote, low density residential development, agricultural and forestry uses, end quote. And the development plan will negatively impact both scenic views and pastoral landscapes, but, end quote. And these quotes are from the Richmond town plan. And we asked the developer to consider, our ask for the developers to consider eliminating the proposed lots 1, 2, and 3. And to find an alternative use of these lands that will not impact scenic views and pastoral landscapes, will not impact the class 2 wetlands on these lots, and will not risk stormwater impacts to the abutting neighbors. While this may sound extreme, we don't believe that the lots as proposed are reasonable in the context of the town plan, town ordinances, and the project impacts. Such an alternative would result in several improvements to the proposed project, which we have enumerated in our written comments. Well, we're not abutting landlords ourselves. We are concerned with the stormwater impacts to abutting neighbors. In our written comments, we've outlined our requests to the subdivider and to the board related to ensuring compliance with Richmond subdivision regulations and ensuring that the concerns of abutting landowners are properly addressed. We asked the subdivider to address outdoor lighting while minimizing light pollution. Keeping the nighttime sky dark would benefit current neighbors and new neighbors who are Hillview Heights Homeowners Association members. And our concern is that the light pollution from houses will encroach on the viewshed, as the hillside and Camel's Hump can be seen often seen at nighttime as well, or will otherwise disrupt the dark sky. Subdivider states that the proposed lot 7, the remainder, will be used for agriculture and residential uses. We're certainly happy to see agriculture use of at least some of the property. However, there are no assurances that this land will be used for agriculture purposes in the future. Now, this remainder lot is over 60 acres in size, and concerningly, there is a road to nowhere that terminates in this large remainder lot. This and other elements of the application could indicate potential future development. And again, please see our written comments for more details on that. So since the sketch plan review for this project 2 years ago, the landowner has engaged in an apparent pattern of piecemeal development. Several aspects of the proposed subdivision have already been built or are in the process of being built while this preliminary subdivision application is under review. Sections of the proposed road to serve lots 4 to 7 were improved without any state or town permits under the guise of ag maintenance in July of 2021. The landowner recently represented to Richmond zoning administrator that they anticipate starting construction in April or May of this year, which is now, on the same driveway that's proposed as a road to serve lots 4 to 7. We've included more examples in our written comments. And we asked the board to take steps to ensure that this project receives a comprehensive review. It includes both past development activity and future development plans that may not yet be disclosed by the subdivider. And there are many areas in which the subdivider's application is incomplete or contains discrepancies. So to highlight a few of those, the subdivider has not recorded all of their state permits in the land records of the town of Richmond. This is problematic for a number of reasons, one of which is that the subdivider relies on these state permits within their application. Yeah, it's unclear if the board has these permits in their entirety available for its review. Richmond zoning regulations 3.13C requires lots in the AR district to have at least 100 feet of continuous uninterrupted lot frontage. The proposed lot 1 shows a frontage of plus or minus 100 feet. Given that the subdivider has not requested a waiver, they should provide clarity on the precise frontage of the proposed lot 1. As we've already talked about, the subdivider's traffic study is outdated and inconsistent with the rest of their application, showing a different number of lots in a different site plan. Further, the traffic study was conducted in May of 2021, at a time when traffic was significantly reduced. Richmond subdivision regulations Article 3, Section 310.1 requires the preliminary subdivision plat, sort of plat, not the plan, to include information that is either missing or correct. We've outlined at least 6 such instances in our written comments. And our Article 3, Section 3.10.2 requires the preliminary subdivision plan to include information that is either missing or correct. We've outlined at least 4 such instances in our comments. It's unclear if the subdivider has submitted sufficient information addressing impacts related to the considerations outlined in subdivision regulations Article 5, Section 500, General Planning Standards, and Richmond subdivision regulations Article 6, Section 630 states that the lighting shall comply with Richmond zoning regulations. Yet we don't see any plans related to lighting included in the subdivider's application. Again, please see our written comments for more details related to these items. So this application as presented cannot be approved by the board. To highlight some examples of where the application falls short of the relevant regulatory provisions. Again, from what we can ascertain the proposed stormwater system may be designed for a 10-year storm, not a 25-year storm. We asked the board to require independent technical review of the proposed stormwater system. And again, we did see that following document that was submitted, but that document does not say anywhere on it that's related to Hillview Heights. It says prepared by interior company named here. And we asked about the 25-year storm requirement during stormwater processing. And yesterday was the first time we've seen this document. So we definitely have not had sufficient time to review that and comment on that highly technical document. There's the road to nowhere that I mentioned earlier that terminates within the proposed lot 7. Richmond subdivision regulations article 6 section 600.6 requires dead end roads to terminate in a circular turnaround or in a hammerhead, which clearly is not the case for this dead end road to nowhere. The subdivider's application shows 2 house sites on the proposed lot 7, the remainder lot. These are the old farmhouse that's labeled on the existing condition plan as to remain abandoned, and the new house site shown on the proposed lot 7. We don't see how 2 house sites can be allowed on one lot, raising a concern in our minds that the developer may plan to further subdivide the proposed lot 7 in the future, after which these 2 house sites would be on separate lots. The subdivider's application states that the proposed lot 3 driveway will be, quote, top dressed and, quote, reclaimed with new driveway stone. However, the wetlands permit application presented the proposed lot 3 driveway as TRM, or to remain, with no indication that the driveway would be widened. The developer was adamant during the wetlands permitting process that the lot 3 driveway was to remain without any improvements when we raised this issue. Richmond zoning regulation 6.9.4C requires a permit from the state wetlands program for any development within class 1 or class 2 wetlands. The proposed lot 3 driveway cannot be approved given the adverse impact this driveway would have on class 2 wetlands and the lack of a wetlands permit for these additional impacts above and beyond what was issued to the developer in their wetlands permit. Subdivision regulations article 6 section 600.4 states that access points should be consolidated to minimize multiple curb cuts. Subdivider has proposed 4 curb cuts when currently the property is a single lot that is allowed to have only 1 curb cut. Approval of this application would result in a 4-fold increase from the currently allowed 1 curb cut. Again, we have provided an alternative in our written comments that would reduce the number of curb cuts to 1. Subdivider's plans as presented show overhead utilities to remain. Richmond subdivision regulations article 6 section 670.2 requires that all utility systems be located underground, and we cannot find any proposed underground utilities within the subdivider's plans. Again, please see our written comments for more details related to these items. Finally, our written comments include several photos as examples of the character of our neighborhood and the typical development pattern for this area. The subdivider's proposed lots are relatively small when compared to the other lots in the neighborhood. Where you do see smaller lots in the neighborhood, those lots tend to be clustered along HillView Road or otherwise concentrated, so as not to impact scenic views and pastoral landscape. One defining element of the area is a scenic view shed of Camel Sump shared by many neighbors. The proposed lot 2 house site is situated on top of a knoll directly within this currently unobstructed view shed. Most houses on HillView Road are set back from the road. That are set back from the road are screened from view by the road, and many houses that are situated near the road also have some level of screening. Some areas with pastoral views and farmlands remain open and can be viewed from the road. Much of HillView Road is lined with trees on both sides of the road, even where houses are sited, and there are many forests, hills, pastures, and other undeveloped lands alongside the road. The knoll that I referenced earlier is a recognizable feature at the base of Owl's Head. It's visible to many neighbors and offers pastoral views from vantage points along HillView Road. The proposed lot 1 and 2 house sites will both be situated on this knoll. And the proposed lot 3 house site will be situated directly within a pastoral view at the base of Owl's Head. The proposed lots 4 to 7 road passes through a stand of trees not far after it connects to HillView Road. Once the proposed lots 4 to 7 road passes the stand of trees, proposed lots on that road.
I apologize to interrupt. If I could ask the chair, just in recognition of the number of hands and other folks here and the time, I don't know if we want to impose a time limit on.
Well, I mean, all you're doing is reiterating the letter that you did, and we've gotten that. So do you have anything new that's not in your letter?
Almost done.
Do you have anything new to present to us that's not in your letter?
I'm almost done. Okay, just finish.
I understand that, and I'm asking you, do you have anything that you want to tell us that's different from the materials you have supplied us with?
Everything that I haven't, everything that I have remaining that I haven't said yet is also in the letter. So,
Okay,
like
so-
I said, I have like 2 more sentences, but that's fine. I can wrap it up there if that's what you.
Please do.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. No.
Anybody else in the public that's in this room? Nope. Okay, let's take the We'll go left to right. Shelby?
Shelby, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Shelby Farrington. I don't live in the town of Richmond, but I've wanted to live in your town for quite some time. It's been the last several years that we've considered moving there and there hasn't been an opportunity. So we've been very interested when we heard mutterings about this project. I'm a nurse, so I have to live within 30 minutes of the hospital to take call. I come in for cath lab emergencies. And this is just like a really great opportunity for people to move to your town and be a part of your wonderful community. I have got a 4-year-old daughter who I'd love to attend your schools. And I just want to express that I was really excited when I heard about this. And as I listen, it's kind of disheartening to hear so many people who are coming up against it. It's almost like they want to close the door behind them. You know, I want to make a garden. I want to, you know, have a place for my daughter to play, a yard. And I know that this isn't a prepared dissertation and I didn't do all my research on all the laws, but I just did want to say as a regular person, I really want to be part of your community and I'm excited about this opportunity and I respect how much thought everybody's putting into the way that it is executed. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Michael, again, I'm gonna tell you that we've received your comments in writing. So is there anything that you have to present to us that is different from what or new from what you have already presented to us?
Yes,
Shelby?
yes, Dave, thank you for recognizing me. Chiefly, what I want to comment on are the explanations that I heard this evening and the comments in the staff report, which was filed online after I made my comments. In a nutshell, I think if you review the text of section 610.1 and section 310.2.12, you'll find that the rationale that was offered in the staff comments for why a development plan is not required here doesn't square at all with the text of those provisions. The text of the relevant provision says, for any portion of the parcel or lot not proposed for land development, a master plan is required. Now, the rationale that was offered this evening was multifold. This started with, well, because there's going to be some construction on a portion of the lot, therefore, that satisfies the requirement. Respectfully, the problem with that rationale is you just have to reread that first sentence, which says, for any portion of the parcel or lot not proposed for land development. It does not say that if you put one structure on a large parcel of land, it's exempt. It actually says exactly the opposite. Now, I've heard from some of the commissioners or board members, excuse me, that they think this is something that doesn't matter because you can just review this circumstance in a new subdivision application down the road. I think respectfully that's mistaken. I go back to my own time, 8 years that I spent on the Planning Commission at a time when we had to issue permits and draft subdivision regulations. And our frustration, which I think is reflected in this provision, was with receiving piecemeal developments when the standards of our regulations required that we consider the cumulative impacts of a development before issuing a permit. It's not an answer to say at some point we'll review an additional increment when the totality of the development is what counts for many of our criteria. And specifically in this district, there is, as we noted, a requirement that the entire development not generate more than 10 evening end trips. So if we break this project up into 7 lots now and some increment of lots later, we're never going to be able to effectively apply that standard. So I think it does matter. And actually, it is what motivated this provision to be added to our subdivision regulations so that we truly could understand all of the implications of an entire development. It's also been asserted that because the word conceptually is inserted in this language, that the board has no authority whatsoever to make binding rulings. Well, reasonable lawyers, maybe I'm an unreasonable lawyer, of course, that was a straight line for all you who know me, by the way. Reasonable lawyers, of course, can disagree about legal principles. But I don't think it's reasonable to argue that a board with an explicit regulation like this lacks the power to say, in fact, lacks the responsibility to say, that we must have a meaningful and complete development plan. And that development plan has to have teeth in order for us to implement the terms of this regulation. The word conceptually does not repeal everything else that is in that language. And it's all intended to make sure that we know something meaningful about the entire development before it is approved. I would also point out that what has been skipped over in the conversation is the provision of 310.212 is absolutely black and white mandatory. It doesn't say that we can reinterpret the regulations and do away with the development plan. It says the preliminary subdivision plan shall include the following information as specified in section 610.1, a master development plan. Now, in preliminary subdivision review, of course, frequently subjects are kicked to the final review. The purpose is to figure out what we really need to address. This isn't one of those provisions. This is something that you have to consider and vote on tonight. And it's quite clear on the state of this record that if you vote to advance this preliminary subdivision plan, you are doing so even though there is no master development plan. I respectfully suggest that's something that the board should think very hard about before it takes that action. I would hope that the board would also help us to understand what are the comments that have been made by Mr. Goslin about the traffic situation. I understand that staff doesn't have time to post all the comments, but apparently they have been shared with the board and are going to be part of the board's decision-making tonight. They have not been shared with the public, even though they were apparently prepared in direct response to comments that we submitted.
I don't want to interrupt you, but the only comment I've seen from our road foreman was the one that was put up on the screen. That's all I've seen. So if there were...
When you say it was put up on the screen, David, I looked on the website and didn't see anything, and I haven't seen anything displayed on screen, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
David, I can answer that. So, Michael, the reason for that is with this application, I did receive a high number of submissions, yours kind of being one of them, a little bit after the deadline that I have for the applicants to submit materials. Generally, I try and be as flexible as I can be to try and allow the public time to be able to prepare comments and provide them, because I understand what, you know, people are busy. They have other real jobs. They may not have 4 or 5 hours to go to kind of put down something, so they may do it last minute. What I did with Pete was I reached out to Pete directly to try and get some comments on that, because I anticipated that it may come up. By the time I got them, I really didn't have sufficient time to be able to post them along with everything else that I was receiving. So I just decided that I would have them and make them available to the public. And this meeting is being recorded, so anybody who, and my screen was being shared, so anybody who wants to see that can do it. I'm happy to make copies available to you. I can also post them online after the fact.
I would be grateful for that, because I'm at a loss to understand what his comments are at this point. So, in a nutshell, if I can conclude without the benefit of Mr. Goslin's comments,
Did
The
you
argument that I heard advanced by the applicant.
There's two different things too. There's what I shared and then there's additional comments which addressed your comment about HillView Road, which I have not shared, but I do have a copy of.
Great, great. Well, I'd be delighted to see that and address it at some point.
And if you guys want to see, it, you have it. So your call.
Okay,
If I conclude, the comment that I heard from the developer was that this application would actually produce a net decrease in trip ends. Don't understand that comment, and I certainly don't understand the traffic study, and I certainly don't understand the assertion that 8 new residential structures, 6 of them that will be 4-bedroom homes, would not produce 10 additional evening trip ends. Now, maybe that turns out to be true, but I would suggest to the board that in light of those comments made tonight, that they should raise even more concerns, and the board should think hard about getting some independent evaluation of that issue. So I appreciate you indulging me and putting up with my comments, and I appreciate your work on behalf of the town, and thank you very much.
thank you, Michael. Next is Rachel Gray. Am I reading that correctly?
And Mike, when you get a moment, lower your hand, please, just so we know that we don't, unless you want to keep it up to ask something.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Gray, and my husband and I own Owlshead Blueberry Farm, which is close by to this new proposed development across the road from us. And, you know, we're relatively new to Richmond, I guess, kind of like 6-7 years ago now. And when we purchased our farm, we enrolled the land in current use, and there was a conservation easement put on the farm. And some of that is, you know, communicating to the town of Richmond that we intend to continue to keep this land as a working farm and an agricultural use. And so I guess I just was kind of curious and thinking about that master plan, if there's any sort of communication from the owners about enrolling some of that land in current use or putting a conservation easement on it to kind of show that that farm business is here to stay, and or at least be here for a while, and they plan to keep that land undeveloped. So just curious if that's come up at all. And then I did want to make a comment about the stormwater. We have a main stream that runs through our land that comes down from like Laddensack Lane, and it's the primary stream that runs through our property. It's quite flashy when we have big storms. It is filled right up. We get runoff from the houses across the road, and I know we'll get runoff from lots 1 and 2. We can only presume that. And we have erosion along that stream now, and we're working with the state to establish plantings there to try to mitigate that erosion that's already happening. So that's definitely a concern of ours. And I just want to say too, I appreciated Shelby's comment that I know that we need some development, and we're relatively new to Richmond. We have a young family. We're excited to be here and be part of the town. And one of the things that drew us, I think, to Richmond is that it has a close-knit community. It has a lovely downtown, and it has a wonderful rural aspect to it. And we were surprised when we found out about the 1 acre zoning around us, and it just seems a little bit maybe too dense for our road on HillView Road and with our farm right here. And welcome a neighboring farm, but just a little bit concerned about the density and the increase in houses that our visitors from the town of Richmond will see when they come on music nights. You know, so a couple of these houses, if 2 or 3, will be visible from our blueberry fields. So I think that's all I have to say, but I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Rachel. Next,
And lower your hand, Rachel, please.
next is Bonnie. What would you like to say, Bonnie?
Whoops, hang on a minute, sorry. All right, thank you. My name is Bonnie Waninger, and I live at 82 Bates Farm Road. with my husband, Steve Smith. And our comments relate to the road itself. I'm frequent walker on the road, observe traffic in the area. And one of the things we've noticed relates to the alignment of driveways. The plan didn't actually show the driveways on the other side of the road. I don't know if that's required in Richmond. But when you have driveways that are staggered across the road, it creates more of an unsafe condition as drivers try and monitor not only the road, but the other driveways and the other users of the roadway. So I would be supportive of at least reducing the number of driveways from lot 1 and 2 as Tyler recommended. But also to think about how those driveways align with the driveways on the other side of the road, that they're offset, and how that works on the road. The other part, the stormwater comment, there was a comment that the stormwater is actually slower coming off the site as proposed than it is right now, but that stormwater is also concentrated and becomes almost a point source coming out of those detention ponds as they feed in. So it is taking what was stormwater that ran across the land and focuses in it in one outlet point. Theoretically, that won't create erosion. But if you look at some of the places, the ditches along the road that run into the creek, that those places were outlet, you'll see that those places coming into the creek are already, into the stream are already eroding. So we may need to think about the outlet for the one that's near lots 4, 5, and 6. I'm trying to remember. I only have one screen to look at. But where the former owner used to live, that driveway. So those are our two, again, roadway related, just ensuring continuity of travel on the road, but safe travel for everybody who continues to use the road. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Judy, you're up next.
Judy, you're still muted?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Thank you. I have a couple of quick process comments. So if the board approves this tonight, then that's a done deal. Is that correct? Is that understanding correct? And,
This is a preliminary subdivision.
Okay.
There'll be at least one more hearing. And we've asked the applicant for some information, so we'll have to see what the board wishes to do once we finish with this part of the hearing.
Okay, and are there other opportunities to comment? So there'll be another hearing. Will there be opportunities for the public to comment for that hearing?
There will be at the conclusion, there's always a final hearing.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking really is if I could submit written comments for that next hearing, because I believe I've missed a deadline for this one.
Judy, you can submit whatever you'd like. So it depends on what goes on to the board. They could make a decision, on this application for the preliminary one tonight. They could decide that they want to continue it to a different date. It's a ball game. So if they do continue it for the next meeting, you could still, the hearing is technically still open, so you could submit testimony that you'd like to have entered into the record for the upcoming meeting, or if you choose to reserve it, because they have one final step to go through before it's approved, which is final subdivision approval. Which would be like this, you would have yet another opportunity to be able to weigh in on it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Does that conclude your comments? Yep, yes, so.
Sorry, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Are there any other comments from the public?
We have a few over here, then.
Okay, any others from those out of this room? Nope.
Like it.
Okay, back to the room.
Back to the room. Hi,
Yes, sir.
Mark Fossil. I am a property abutter to the development. A important point is I'm a downhill property abutter to this development and I attended the stormwater runoff forum that the state held before they, I think, pretty much put it through the way it was before the forum started, but in that presentation, it was expressed that there would be a retention pond on the downward portion of that hill. So as you know, like, my house is right near that corner, unfortunately. I'm stuck there. It's also the lowest point of the valley on that side of the road. So I get runoff from the hill, the mountain, you know, whatever, a lot of it's fine.
So you're across from, lot 1 and 2.
I am right next to lot 1. My driveway is about 20-25 feet from the property line. My garage is 20 feet, my house is maybe 50. So I'm right there, and it is really the lowest point of that valley. And I do experience some flooding, if you can believe it, if you're ever up that way. I actually have floodplain designated around my pond, which is kind of a crazy thing, and I haven't had any flooding, but it is clearly, it's being identified as a bastion of water collection, right? So I'm particularly concerned because in the state permit application, the language said that there would be a small swale encircling the bottom of that hill along my property line, and that would collect into a retention pond. And then the overflow from that retention pond would be pumped to a roadside ditch, which would connect to a municipal roadside ditch and discharge to a nearby stream. The problem is that roadside ditch is only like a total of 40 feet long, less than that. It basically, the ditch ends as the land continues to slope down, and all of that runoff from the road, which I've experienced since forever, dumps into my front side yard, where I have a fire pit, I recreate. My septic is in the front of the house. And I'm a little concerned about the stormwater, any additional stormwater from a well-manicured 5-acre lot on a hill, dumping into a culvert, which basically dumps into my yard. And so I'm wondering now, when I looked at the most recent language in the application, it looked like the stormwater discharge was going to discharge to a class 2 wetland. But I'm confused by that. Maybe if somebody can just answer some questions, I'd love some clarification on what actually is the disposition of all of that stormwater collection. Where is it going? Is it going into the back of the property to the class 2 wetland, which, by the way, and you know, I get it, but it feeds into a shallow swale behind my house, which my well is 5 feet long. So that has some concerns as far as lawn applications and whatever is going to happen there. And I don't know what you can do about that. I guess my point is I'm hoping that you guys can do something more than the state did in regards to protecting literally the physical degradation of my property from the stormwater runoff that's going to come from this development.
Did you participate in the wetlands? And so
Comment.
the comments you're making to us, you also made to the state?
I did.
Okay.
And they said it doesn't concern them on a state level. So I'm coming to the local folks where it matters. You know, where the rubber hits the road, and asking you guys, you're my last defense. If you guys can't help me out, my septic is suspect, my lawn is gonna become a class 2 wetland. And the flooding in my backyard and runoff past my drinking water well, which is a 50-foot well. It's, you know, the groundwater is 2 feet deep underneath the soil. Those discharges are considerable. They're going to have a negative impact on my farm. And so I'm hoping that you guys can do something, or maybe you guys already have, I don't know. Because it doesn't look like the language that was applied to the state permit application still exists in the permit that I could find now. Engineering submissions are the gobbledygook. We can't understand anything, really. I mean, it's a difficult thing, and maybe somewhere it's buried where there's a clarification of the situation, but as it was proposed at the stormwater, state stormwater, it doesn't look like they're doing much.
Does the applicant have a response?
Is there a specific question? There was a lot of.
Well, I think this neighbor is wondering if his property is gonna get flooded.
Do you want to explain the
Yeah.
district right there?
So the stormwater treatment practice on lot 1 is an infiltration basin. We have test pits and infiltration testing that allow for infiltration in that area. I do not have the numbers in front of me right now on what storm is infiltrating versus running off. But the system is designed to infiltrate as much water as it can, as opposed to running off site. And the water that does come out of the infiltration basin does flow to the class 2 wetland.
In the back
Correct.
with my well, rather than my front yard and such. So I'm wondering, you know, you.
We don't have an answer for you.
There's no
at the moment.
But I mean, I guess my question is. Can we ask more from the for the capacity for that stormwater runoff? I understand there's gonna be a homeowners association and that these systems, once established, are going to be maintained, and that's a great comfort too. Versus just filling it with grass over the years. But can we do more to contain that stormwater so that it doesn't? And the other question I have, just as a side note, is one driveway, 2 driveways, either way, that road runs, the land is above the road, so there's no runoff of the road in a road buildup rain until it gets to, I guess you call it a roadside ditch, which is just on either side of my driveway. But it flushes into my driveway and then down and in. Most of it percolates in at this point. It doesn't have a constant stream, but I certainly get, you know, puddles forming in the lowest part of my yard. Are we planning on ditching the rest of that road so that all that water, which trickles and at least collects a little bit on the side of the road as it's going down and slowing down, is that now going to go into a roadside ditch and just hum along the side of that road right into my ditch and right into my lawn at an increased pace than it does already? Because that driveway going up to the top of that hill, I don't know how it's designed. I haven't seen anything. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out here. That driveway is designed for runoff to go down the road to the, you know, municipal ditch that's there. That municipal ditch, all full contents is flooding my front yard. So.
Does that ditch not pass along, follow the road along?
No, it's just on, it's like 10 feet on one side of my driveway and 20 feet on the other. So the stream that it's supposed to connect up to is like another 20, 50 feet. I should have measured. I'm sorry, but the point is that, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know where you're talking about. That's my problem, that I would be, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
So I'm across the road from the berry farm.
Right, I understand that. I just can't, I never looked on the side of the road to see what it looked
I
like.
would very much welcome any of you to take a drive up there.
We-
and put
we
my
will do
arm
a
on
site
it
visit.
Because
I think we will do a site visit and maybe you could be present at the time and explain this to us.
And,
Well, we
Yeah.
can't do that
No,
because we
too
can't
bad.
take,
oh, you can't take
Take
testimony.
testimony.
Oh, that's right. I can't think of, never mind.
It'd be
But we-
easy, and
we
it
could
doesn't
do a
take
site
lot of
visit.
Explaining.
we're now aware of what
If
your
you come
thoughts
even
are.
during a light rain, you're gonna see some traffic coming off of the road, which falls into the swale and generally percolates down. But on a good storm, forget about it.
Tyler, do you know the area that he's?
I need to drive up there myself. I do kind of know where roughly that is. And again,
You
you
were
guys,
there and you were taking a look, you were saying that you were taking a look at the stormwater off of lots 4, 5, and 6. But I think I've sort of passed under the radar, so my best efforts to garner a view or attention. So this is my last chance. This is it, you guys.
We hear you.
Count on, to
I mean, you
not
could
just
do,
protect the aesthetics, but to protect the physical structure.
Right.
you could do, again, the site visit thing. The only thing you'd have to do with it is if you all want to go, technically that's a quorum, so it would have to be one. So what we would
Right.
just do is we would have 2 meetings essentially where we'd have one would be a site visit. And then immediately after that, we would come here, open up the hearing, or however, or reopen the hearing.
we could talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I'll say you're welcome. Drive by anytime. You want to take a look at the small swale in the back where my well is, you're welcome to walk in the backyard. I would welcome it unattended. I don't have a problem with that. I just want, an honest perspective from you guys and hopefully some protection and the potential of what this could do to my property.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Ben Young. I am not a resident of Richmond. I live in Essex. And I'm just gonna echo something Shelby said and add a little bit of my own data to it. So my wife and I and our 2 children have been trying to buy or build a property inside of Chittenden County for the last 3.5 years. And we have been unsuccessful. And we have good friends who live in Richmond, and we would really like to be part of this community for all the reasons Shelby said. And for those of you who are not actively participating in the real estate market, it is brutal, to be frank. If you look inside the town of Richmond right now on the MLS, there is one property, land, house, trailer, whatever, for sale in this entire town right now. Last week, there were 0. For 2 weeks in a row. We desperately want to live in a town like Richmond and participate in the community and pay taxes and send our kids to school. And I recognize that there's a lot to consider in this. This is a complicated development, but our voice is really like anything we can do to have some responsible development inside of these towns would get our vote, because it is really significantly more difficult even than it was a few years ago to purchase a home and build roots in these communities. And last thing I would say is if we didn't have family that lived around here, we would probably have to leave the state of Vermont because it's that bad. So again, echoing a little bit of what Shelby said, but whatever we can do to make some responsible development that takes into consideration the regulations and the concerns of the abutters and the other folks in the neighborhood, we'd be all for it. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Sarah Valinsky, I will follow up with what you said. We would request responsible development. I live on HillView Road. It's not a question of if, but how development is going to happen. Land is a finite resource. We have serious concerns with this particular application and plan. It is irresponsible and out of character. It does not support what the town looks like or what we stand by. And they have 40, 60 other acres to deal with, and yet they want to have 4 curb cuts in a tiny amount of space. I am a frequent walker, runner, and biker on the road. We already have a lot of traffic, and I request that you make sure there is a traffic study that's updated, because we are actually a cut through from Williston to Huntington. I'm not sure if that has been accounted for. We really can't accommodate a ton more houses. I don't know what number that is. We welcome new people. I question whether 2,000 square foot houses will be affordable or not, but that's not something you're going to be able to decide either. It feels like, as a taxpayer of 16 years, you folks are the last people we have to protect this town. And so I'm asking you, as the Development Review Board, to just kind of keep these folks in check and protect our town, because once it's changed, it's permanent. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
One gentleman online.
Where?
Top right corner, it's Ryan.
Yeah, it's
Ryan.
Dan Ryan.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Dan, I accidentally muted you. Just unmute yourself. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right. I just wanted to, echo and my property does abut, the development, and Mark is one of the best neighbors going, and I think to be a good neighbor, you don't just develop something in a little bubble. I would think that you would want to look at how this engineering would affect the whole valley. It's really a valley, and I think it needs to be looked at. And I think the master plan needs to come of it needs to be unearthed. I mean, we can't just do 7 houses here, 7 houses, another couple of years, and 7 more and 7 more. I think it needs to really be looked at, and I think, and we trust that that this responsibility you'll take seriously. So thank you for all the time spent tonight by the board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Anybody else? Electronically or not? Any final comments from the applicant right now?
None, no, thank you.
So we've heard a lot. I think there's some issues that I would like to hear more information from the applicant on. I don't know about the rest of the board. And I've got a list of them. So what I would propose is to go through what the board feels we'd like more information on, continue this meeting until we can get that information, which would probably be the next month. And hopefully we can answer some more questions and get some more information. What does the rest of the board feel?
I think that's reasonable. Is this something that we can outline and agree on? That is what additional information.
What we could do is continue the meeting, go into executive session, and issue some sort of memo of further information that we would like from the applicant. And I have some information I'd like from the town attorney. And get that to the applicant, and then hopefully the applicant could get the information to us either for the next meeting or the meeting after that.
And can we also say that any submission in advance of the next meeting must be, let's say, 5 days in advance of the meeting, or we're going to adjourn the meeting?
Well, I would like the board, and I'm discuss this when the board meets privately, but I think we need to start to enforce a deadline.
Yeah.
Of how many days and before a meeting information could be provided, because for this meeting and a meeting last time, we received a lot of information just before the meeting, and that's hard for us to digest and think
at
about.
the meetings.
And getting new information at the meeting is absurd.
Unless it's a comment.
Yeah.
Especially on a second hearing, this next hearing will be a follow-up. I don't think that anyone should submit anything beyond a week before the hearing, so that we can read it, consider it in advance.
I don't disagree with you, David.
How does that work for public comment, though? If we would accept comment at the hearing, but
Yeah, we have to.
We have to accept comment at the hearing.
there would be no comment accepted for 5 days prior to the hearing, but then again at the hearing.
No evidence.
There were a few that I got
today.
I
that I
I
just
just want to
couldn't.
be clear that we're talking about, yeah, is it
Yeah, we're just,
information from the applicant or from the public?
Well, from anyone,
And the public could show up at the meeting and give us the same stuff.
yes.
Yeah, it may trigger a further continuation if it was something the board felt was important. I mean, that's just the way the process works.
Yeah.
So I'd entertain a motion to continue this hearing to the next scheduled hearing, which is
Yeah, hang on one second.
May.
Is, I just want to double check the date, because we have to continue to a date certain.
10th, I think.
So that would be May 10th.
Okay. And that we go into executive session and, or not executive,
Deliberative. Well, you can't,
deliberative
you
session.
wouldn't go into deliberative because that would close the proceedings. So you just you say that's it, you know, for the night, and we can just chat about some stuff. Because again, technically the hearing is open.
And
So
we'll-
they haven't closed anything.
and we'll try to issue,
Deliberative and then go, and then continue?
No, because then once you're in deliberative, you've closed it. So if you, then you'd have
but
to.
you could always
We
reopen.
could reopen, then go to, then move to continue if we so chose.
Exactly.
I would have to look more at that. I'm not entirely sure, but in my process, my understanding of the process, that if you want to take additional information, it's best just to continue the application, to continue it without going into deliberative. Because once it's in deliberative, it's closed, and then you have to motion to reopen it again. And if you just can motion to continue.
Well, you
the
can
date
always
certain-
go into deliberative session. Right now, we could just say we want to go into deliberative session and clear the room out and discuss something without closing the meeting. That's always a possibility. So I mean, if we close the meeting and go into deliberative session, yes, then we've closed it.
Because in the past, at least I know procedurally how we've done it, is that once you entered motion it into deliberative, it's closed.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is David Drake. I'm attorney for the applicant. We don't have any objection to you having a confidential closed deliberative session. We're not going to claim that the hearing's been closed. It's not going to trigger the 45-day rule or anything like that. So please do what you need to do, and we will await receipt of the recess memo.
Unfortunately, you're not the only side of this.
We're not, I don't know that there would be any prejudice to any of the neighbors.
I agree.
To allow you to continue the hearing. The remedy of the closing the hearing and the 45-day rule is to prevent protracted deliberations and delay. So we're not claiming that. Do what you need to do. We just want to preserve that you've adjourned it to May 10th, date certain. And we look forward to receipt of the recess memo. We agree that you should impose a deadline for the filing of written submissions. It was impossible for me to read everything that came in all at once at the end. And so I don't care whether you call it deliberative, executive, whatever, on the record, applicant is not going to claim that the hearing's been closed. As far as we know, it's been adjourned to May 10th, and we're ready to move forward.
Okay,
That
fair
has
enough.
not happened though, right? That was, David said he considered that as a motion.
Right.
We have not made such.
We haven't made a motion.
Right, I know.
Because I think you guys can talk about it behind closed doors to a certain extent. I think about process and like how we want to kind of move forward with things, or what things, information you would like.
Well, I'd entertain that motion to go into deliberative session, but continue the meeting to a date certain, which would be May 10th.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
So who did it first? I'm so who's
Roger.
motion to continue, Roger, and Patrick, your second,
Sure, yes.
and then unanimous.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're gonna continue the meeting. We will try as best we can to issue as soon as possible a recess memo so that you and all the public can see what issues we need more information on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.